Hey guys, good evening. It's Thursday, January, I almost said August, January 31st here, and you're allowed. I'm allowed to be a little bit off kilter here. I think my brain is frozen from the cold outside. So, to those of you that are following me from the Midwest and what you guys have experienced, and God bless you, and I hope everybody's safe and warm. There was something that took place last night. I was eager to share this morning, and then my morning got off to a bit of a rough start, and I'll share that with you. So, um, so this morning, got in my car at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was -4 degrees in the car, and it's kind of funny because I'm no science guy, but let me see if I got this right. In the cold, the colder it gets, air kind of compresses. In other words, if you have a balloon filled with air and you left it out in the cold, it would essentially start to almost seem deflated by the nighttime. So I got in my car last night, or this morning, and I never saw this happen. I've had it impact my tire pressure. So my little tire light is on saying your pressure's thrown off, but I attribute that to the cold. But I never had this happen. My airbags inside the car, my warning light for my airbags is going on now. Never did that before, so I can only attribute it, being there's supposedly air inflated, that somehow some sensor or something went on. Maybe I'm wrong, but it would just be too coincidental that when it's 4 degrees below zero is when my airbag sensor goes on. So that was me getting into the car, and now here's where it got a little bit crappy for me. So about 4 miles up the road before I hit the interstate, there's a convenience store where a lot of people go, and there's a traffic light right there. And about a mile or two up the road from there is the local police station, police department. So I pull up today, and sometimes 90% of the time the light's green, and you blow right onto the highway, and away you go. Well, wouldn't you know it, but I get hit with the light, and who pulls behind me but two police SUVs. So I know I got a couple things that I'm not real proud of with my car that needs some fixing, and just haven't had a lot of time. So here I am at the light. Hadn't done anything wrong, but you're kind of nervous looking behind you saying, please, light, turn green. Please turn green so I can move on and just get to work and not have any problem. Well, lo and behold, here come the flashing lights. So I get pulled over. It's 4 degrees below zero. I think it had warmed up to 2 degrees below zero by the time I got there or something over by the highway. And the officer comes out. So I got to give them credit. Anybody that wants to pull somebody over at in that temperature has to be diligent about their job. In fact, that was the second thing I wanted to talk about on here today, and it kind of ties into it. So what was very cool, and I got very lucky, was I did get a citation, but I could have got more than one citation, and the one I got was a pretty fixable one. So he was a younger officer, and certainly grateful to him for that. So it took me a while as they run all the backgrounds and what they do, and then I was on my way. But like I said, it could have got really expensive for me with the citations he could have given me. So greatly thankful for that. How that ties into the story was I saw what I thought was one of the best burns, one of the best kind of smack talk that took place. It's pretty popular on the internet if you haven't seen it. I don't know what precinct it was, but there's a police department, in the middle of our country going through the deep freeze, and they kind of put out a post on their website like, "Look, guys, it's really cold, so can you all do us all a favor tonight? Can you all just kind of behave yourselves and don't commit any trouble or cause us to have to come out? Do us all a favor." And then it made some alluded to the fact that the local fire department was watching, one of the, I don't know, best dressed show or something like that, and they took it was kind of a neat thing to just say, hey guys, look, we're all kind of cold, we're all in this together. Let's just slow down to normal for tonight, and then with a backhanded slap at the local fire department, the policeman versus fireman kind of shot. So I thought that was kind of cute. But anyway, that leads me to the observation I had last night, which I thought was pretty, in our world of political correctness, I had to laugh a little bit. So it goes like this. Last night I wanted to start my car up to make sure it got a little bit warm, and I have a restaurant close to my home, just a couple miles down the road, that is really, really good food. And I said, you know what? I need a cup of soup right now. So I went out to get a cup of soup, and while I'm sitting there at the restaurant, something struck me, and what struck me wasn't the fact that this gentleman was wearing a knit cap that had the Confederate flag symbol on it. But we're in such a politically correct society. We, and when I say we, I mean all of us to some degree, we always want to assume that the person making the statement, the person wearing the hat, the clothes, the uniform, whatever, understands or has the same understanding that we do. So when we find offense in things, my point is this: the gentleman was a white man wearing a Confederate knit cap, and ironically, he happened to be sitting next to an African American gentleman. So again, with all of the political correctness in the world, you would think that might be offensive to somebody. And as opposed to reading into my situation and getting involved in terms of judging, I just observed and let it play out. When the gentleman with the knit cap left, he said goodbye, shook hands, gave a hug to this guy, the whole bit. And my point that I'm trying to make is that clearly it wasn't the hat it wasn't the symbol. While some people could take offense to that symbol as well as any other symbol, it's a symbol. You take what you want to take out of it. I believe actions speak. I believe words speak. I believe you've got to be sensitive. But I don't know anything about these two. They may never have met before that night. They may be best friends for a lifetime. But my point is, clearly the gentleman not wearing the knit cap took the time to speak with this guy and didn't go off and go, off half-cocked about some offensive thing. And it got me to thinking, as an example, my son, and I had to kind of educate him about this, my son loves cars. He can identify every sports car. Part of it's his game, part of it's his love of it. Hopefully he turns into a passion for himself. And he can identify a McLaren versus a Ferrari versus a Lotus from a mile and a half away. But so I like to watch shows with him to share that moment when it's got to do with vehicles. So as an example, you may judge me. I had a laugh the other day. I was listening to a radio show, sports talk radio show in the middle of the day, and the radio host, who happened to be Rich Eisen of NFL Network, was talking about not sharing Smokey and the Bandit with his 9 or 10-year-old. That's fine. I'm not judging him. I hope you don't judge me. I've been watching Smokey and the Bandit with my son since he's been about 4 years old. Now, I fast forward through 1 or 2 particular scenes, knowing that they're there, but short of that, it's kind of a neat movie for a kid to watch, a guy driving fast and jumping, bridges that are out and things like that. So, but another show that I turned him on to a little bit was the Dukes of Hazzard. And the Dukes of Hazzard's car is the General Lee, and the General Lee has smack right there on the top of it, the Confederate flag. My son doesn't know any better. Maybe he, like I said, maybe he buys a shirt one day or sees it and does, whatever. The Confederate flag to him, much like other people, not the Confederate flag, but other symbols, is just something that they like. The Dukes of Hazzard was on TV for an awful long time, and a lot of people enjoyed it. Does that make them all racist or offensive to somebody? No. So again, I just observed last. Maybe this guy got this hat for the General Lee. Maybe his kids gave it to him. I don't know why he wore the hat. But my point is, he could wear that hat and sit next to somebody, and they could take great offense. And then they could sit next to somebody else, and the same person could take no offense whatsoever. So I really respect, and I don't know either guy, I don't know any details, but I really respected what seemed to me to be the case was that it wasn't a hat that they took the chance to get to know the person. All right? I understand both sides. I understand somebody gets offended by that. And then here's what was so ironic, I swear to you. So here I am watching these two gentlemen, and one gentleman gets up to leave, and as my soup is served, I get up and they have a newspaper rack there, and I go get my local newspaper, which is about that thin. It's got literally hardly any news in it. Look, I made the newspaper several times here, so that'll tell you how big the news is in town. But as I thumbed through the paper, it might have even been in the USA Today section. There's a restaurant in South Carolina that's closing their doors. This was in yesterday's paper because of the Confederate flag. Because I guess there's a group of people. I don't know if it's an organization or something that sits outside, doesn't sit outside, has property right next to his restaurant, and they display this Confederate flag. And this guy's been battling and suing and trying to get them to take it down, and he's just given up. He says, I can't beat them. They win. I don't know if he's saying it's affecting his business to the point that customers don't want to come by because it's so offensive. I certainly understand that might be more offensive in the South than it might be up here in the North. But, I mean, how appropriate that, within 30 minutes of me observing this situation, I open a paper and boom, there's a story smack about it. So I just, again, talking points, things to think about, guys. I tend to point the thumb. I like to point the thumb. I'd like you to. I try not to judge things. I understand sensitivity. I also understand hypersensitivity. I understand how people look for causes and look for something. And that works in every level, in every race, religion, workplace. It's you can look for something to be upset about and you'll find it. It's not real hard. But you can also look beyond the facade and get into the meat of it, and maybe your feelings would change some. So thanks for following. Stay warm. Tonight I'm into the book. I've got to do a couple things here. There's been some work issues for me that suffice it to say that I really enjoy my job and the people, but there's some I'm principled, and that may shock some people, but there's some issues right now with some things I feel pretty strongly about from a principle standpoint, and it's got me concerned. So I'm going to be looking into some things this evening. So that's my night. If you guys are out there and following, want to give a text and say hello, give a phone call if I've met you and I haven't talked to you in a while. Shout out to my man Earl from Ohio. I hadn't reached out to him in a while. He took it upon him to just say hi and see how I was doing. So much love to you, Earl. Much love to you all, guys. Thanks for following. Have a great night and stay tuned. Alrighty, take care.